I still remember the exact way Caleb's voice sounded the night before he died. He was lying on the couch in the living room, legs draped over one armrest, flipping through a worn-out copy of Percy Jackson. He looked up at me with this goofy smile and said, "Mom, when I grow up, I want to be a lawyer, or a dragon." I laughed. "Maybe a dragon who practices law?" He nodded, totally serious. "Exactly. That's the thing about 12-year-olds, they say things that stay with you forever. Sometimes they even say goodbye without knowing they're doing it." The next morning was ordinary. Painfully ordinary. I made toast with cinnamon and cut strawberries the way he liked. He kissed me on the cheek, still half asleep, and mumbled something about soccer practice. "I'll win for you, okay?" "You already did," I said. That was the last thing I ever told him. At 10:47 a.m., my phone rang. I don't remember the name of the number. Just the panic in the voice on the other end. "There's been an emergency." "Are you Caleb's mother?" I thought maybe he'd broken a leg. Maybe he fainted. Kids faint. Right? But the tone in her voice wasn't medical, it was final. I got to the hospital just in time to see the monitor go flat. The doctors were pulling off gloves, walking away. A nurse tried to touch my arm, to comfort me maybe, but I stepped back. My son was gone. My only child. Just like that. They told me it was an undetected heart condition, some rare thing no one had caught. He hadn't felt pain, they said. But I did. Every cell in my body felt it. I tried to call my husband, Mark. He was traveling, supposedly for a strategic investor retreat. His voicemail box was full. I texted him. "Call me now. Caleb's gone. Please." Nothing. I called again. And again. Finally, around 4 p.m., he picked up. "Can this wait?" he said, irritated. "We're about to board the yacht." That word hit me like a slap. Yacht? "Mark, Caleb is dead." There was a pause. 5 seconds. Then. "What?" I repeated it. My throat burned. He collapsed. "He's dead." Another pause. Then, flatly, "I'll call you back." He didn't. I spent the night at home, sitting on Caleb's bed, still unmade from the morning. His soccer jersey was crumpled on the chair. His backpack was half-zipped. I pulled out his notebook and found a drawing of the two of us, stick figures with giant smiles. He'd written, "Me and Mom, team forever." I didn't cry until midnight. Then I couldn't stop. I screamed into a pillow until my voice broke. The walls felt like they were closing in. I checked my phone every 5 minutes. No reply. No call. No text. The next morning, I went to the funeral home. Alone. The director was gentle, but he kept asking, "Will your husband be involved in any of the arrangements?" I said yes. Then I said no. Then I said I didn't know. Because I didn't. I had no idea where he was. Only that he wasn't here. Back home, I tried to call his mother, my mother-in-law. She didn't pick up either. Finally, I got a reply from Mark's assistant. "Mr. Lawson is currently unavailable due to limited reception. He will return stateside in 4 days." 4 days? Our son was dead. Out of desperation, I opened social media. Maybe he posted something. Maybe I'd see a clue about where he was. And there it was. A boomerang video. Champagne bottles popping on a yacht. Laughter. Mark was shirtless, grinning, surrounded by other executives and influencers. There was a caption. "Deals and dolphins. Let's go. Clinking glasses, speedboat, briefcase, #private retreat, #Santorini sunset." I stared at the screen. For a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt hollow. Like I'd left my body. Later that day, I got a voice note from him. Not a call. A 9-second voice note. I just saw your messages. I'll be home soon. Don't do anything dramatic. Dramatic. That's what he called our son's death. That's what he called me, for needing him. At that point, something inside me cracked. Mark and I had been married for 14 years. We met in college. He was ambitious, charismatic, always 2 steps ahead in every negotiation. But cold, too. Even when we were dating, he had a way of shutting down when things got messy. Still, I believed in him. We built a life. Or so I thought. Looking back, I realized something: Mark never wanted to be a father. Not really. He tolerated it. When I told him I was pregnant with Caleb, he looked at me for a long time before saying, "Well, there goes the 5-year plan." After Caleb was born, he tried, for a while. Took him to 1 or 2 soccer games. Bought expensive toys. But he never really saw him. I used to tell myself it was work. That he was busy providing for us. But that was a lie I made up to protect myself. The truth was, Mark didn't care. And now, he didn't even have the decency to show up for his own son's funeral. I texted him one last time. The funeral is Saturday at 2 p.m. You don't need to bring anything. Just bring yourself. He didn't reply. Saturday came. The church was full. Caleb's teammates wore matching jerseys. His teacher gave a short, tearful eulogy. I spoke last. I told them about the dragon lawyer joke. People laughed. Then they cried. I left one seat in the front row empty. It was meant for Mark. It stayed empty the entire time. When I got home that night, I found a delivery on the porch. A wine basket. No note. Just a branded ribbon from the Santorini resort Mark had tagged on Instagram. That was the moment I knew, this wasn't just grief. This was betrayal. And something in me hardened. The morning of Caleb's funeral felt unreal. I dressed in silence. Black dress, hair pinned back, no makeup. My hand shook as I fastened the clasp on a necklace Caleb had made me at summer camp, plastic beads, strung with pride. I wore it like it was gold. People started arriving early. Friends from school. Parents from the soccer team. Even his coach came, standing awkwardly in the back with his cap in hand, eyes glassy. Everyone whispered the same thing. Where's Mark? At first, I said he was delayed. Then I said nothing. Eventually, I stopped responding altogether. Because truthfully, I didn't know. The service began at 2:07 p.m. Caleb's favorite music played softly, something upbeat he used to hum while brushing his teeth. I had planned every detail myself. I didn't trust anyone else to do it right. Not anymore. I stood to speak. I don't remember exactly what I said, only that my voice didn't crack until I saw his empty seat. Front row. Center. Reserved for the man who helped bring Caleb into the world. He wasn't there. He wasn't even trying to be. Halfway through my speech, someone's phone lit up 2 rows behind me. I saw the screen clearly as it lit up in the dim church. Mark Lawson tagged in a photo. I felt my stomach turn. After the service, I locked myself in the church's restroom. My fingers trembled as I opened the post. There he was. On a jet ski. Caption. Nothing like a little speed therapy to reset your mind. Mansurfing cocktail glass #healing time. Healing. The comments were worse. His colleagues praising his grind, calling him an inspiration. One even wrote, "Glad you escaped the drama, bro." Drama. That's what they called the death of our child. As the guests filtered into the reception hall beside the church, I stayed in the stall. I didn't want to see anyone. Not even my own parents. Not even the pastor. I ended up driving home alone. No one was at the house. Just the silence, and Caleb's empty shoes by the door. I sat on the stairs for an hour, not moving. I kept waiting for the doorknob to turn. For someone to care. But no one came. Then, at exactly 7:13 p.m., Mark called. I didn't answer. He called again. Then sent a message. Look, I know you're upset. But you've got to understand, I didn't want my last memory of Caleb to be that. I read it 5 times. That. Our son. A funeral. A moment that deserved reverence, not avoidance. I finally replied. Your last memory should have been of him alive, but you were never around for that either. He didn't answer. 2 hours later, I received an email from a lawyer. Not mine, his. Subject: preliminary conversation regarding trust allocations. That's when the cracks started to show. Apparently, Caleb had a trust account Mark had quietly opened years ago, without telling me. And now that Caleb was gone, the funds were being reallocated. Legally, as per Clause 6 of the Inheritance Directive, Mark would absorb the entire amount. I stared at the screen. The funeral hadn't even ended properly. Our child wasn't even buried 48 hours, and he was already moving money. I took a photo of the email and sent it to myself, subject line: War. The next day, I made an appointment with my lawyer. But before that meeting, something else happened. My neighbor, Claire, sweet, older, the kind who bakes casseroles, rang my doorbell. She hugged me tightly, then said something I'll never forget. You held yourself so gracefully yesterday, but you didn't deserve to be alone up there. People noticed. I asked her what she meant. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo someone had posted online. A wide shot of the funeral chapel. Me standing at the podium. A single empty seat in the front row. It had gone viral. Caption: This mother buried her son alone. Her husband was on a yacht. I scrolled through the comments, thousands of them. Rage. Sympathy. Outrage. People tagging news outlets. Others offering to help. Some sharing their own stories of abandonment and injustice. Claire touched my arm and said, "Don't let him get away with this." Something shifted in me right then. The grief hadn't lessened, but it had sharpened into something colder. Focused. I didn't just want to grieve. I wanted to fight. The world now knew who Mark really was. And soon, I would, too. Grief is not loud. It doesn't show up the way movies portray it, screaming in rainstorms, breaking dishes, dramatic breakdowns in bathtubs. No. Grief is quiet. It's the way you forget to eat for 3 days and don't even notice. It's walking into a room and forgetting why you're there. It's hearing your son's voice in your head and instinctively answering out loud, before remembering he's not here. The house was silent. Deafeningly so. The kind of silence that screams. Every object became a memory. Caleb's sneakers by the door. A sticky note on the fridge with his handwriting, "Don't forget snack money." His pillow still had the faint smell of vanilla shampoo. I couldn't bring myself to wash it. I stayed in his room for hours. Sometimes days. I'd lay in his bed, clutch his stuffed dragon, and whisper apologies I never got to say. Apologies for every time I raised my voice. For every "not now, sweetie." For not noticing. For not saving him. Mark didn't come home that week. Not even once. Instead, he sent a courier with a bag of his clothes and a short note. Staying at the penthouse for a while. Need space. I'll send a cleaning service. A cleaning service. That's what I was now. A mess to be handled. Grief, apparently, was inconvenient for his image. I sat in the kitchen that night, staring at a framed photo of the 3 of us at the beach. Caleb was covered in sand, giggling. Mark had his arm around me. I looked happy. I couldn't even remember what that felt like. Suddenly, I realized I hadn't received a single call from his side of the family. Not his mother. Not his brother. No one. They had gone completely silent. I checked Mark's Instagram again. New post. Taking time to reset. Hashtag clarity weekend. Hashtag no apologies. The picture showed him by a rooftop pool. Alone. In a robe. With a glass of something expensive. The caption made me freeze. Hashtag no apologies. I had been wrong. He wasn't grieving differently. He wasn't grieving at all. He was detaching. Preparing for something. And I had a terrible feeling I was about to find out what. 2 nights later, I heard a car pull up. Mark. He walked in like a guest. No emotion. No eye contact. He smelled like cologne and cigar smoke. I asked him, why now? He poured himself a drink. My lawyer said I should talk to you directly before we move forward. Move forward with what? He sighed, like I was exhausting him. With redistributing the trust. You know Caleb didn't have a will, obviously, so it defaults to the parental estate. I just thought. I slammed my hand on the table. You're talking about money. Don't be emotional, he said, eyes cold. This is legal, not personal. That sentence broke something in me. I stood up, shaking. Our son is dead, and you're here to negotiate? He didn't flinch. You've always been sentimental. That's not sustainable. Not sustainable. It was the moment I stopped seeing him as a husband. Or even as a person. He was a corporation in a suit. Calculating. Unmoved. A liability in my life now. Is that what Caleb was to you? A failed investment? He didn't answer. Just picked up his keys. You'll be hearing from the team this week. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. As he walked out, I realized something that chilled me to my core. He had planned this. The trust. The timing. The detachment. He knew something I didn't. And he was moving fast. So I did too. The next morning, I called my lawyer. A different one. Not the family attorney, someone I trusted. Someone independent. I want to know everything, I told her. Every clause. Every document. Every signature I've ever made with that man. I want it all reviewed. She asked why. I sent her the photo from the funeral. The one with the empty seat. Then I sent the screenshot of his caption, hashtag no apologies. She said, give me a week. But I didn't wait. I started combing through everything on my own. Joint accounts, property titles, life insurance, even Caleb's school fund. And that's when I found it. A file on our shared drive. Tucked inside a folder labeled Q3 taxes. It was a scanned contract. Dated 6 months ago. With Caleb's name at the top. A trust adjustment. And Mark's signature. Only Mark's. The clause was simple. In the event of minor beneficiary death, all remaining assets shall revert to the surviving named parent only. I stared at the screen for a long, long time. He never intended to share anything. Not even grief. That night, I wrote a message to myself in my notes app. A promise. I will not be quiet. I will not be sentimental. And I will not let him walk away from this clean. The morning was over. Now, it was war. When I walked into the lawyer's office, I wasn't a grieving mother anymore. I was something else now, something forged by betrayal, silence, and cold legal documents that treated my son like a transaction. Her name was Elise Grant. She came highly recommended by a friend from university, former corporate litigator turned inheritance specialist. Sharp eyes. No small talk. She had already read everything I sent her, emails, screenshots, the contract from the shared drive. I've dealt with husbands like this before, she said, flipping through a printed copy of the trust adjustment. But the arrogance here is impressive. Is it legal? I asked. Technically? Yes. But legally airtight? Not exactly. She explained that the clause Mark had added was suspicious in timing. The fact that it was signed without my knowledge, while we were still legally married, raised major red flags. Especially considering Caleb was a minor. And even more so because the clause had bypassed standard custodial consent procedures. Then she leaned in and said something that made my skin prickle. I think he planned for this. Not Caleb's death, but control after it. It was like hearing my own suspicions echoed out loud. Chilling. And yet. Validating. Elise had already begun digging. She pulled out a folder. Inside were bank statements from the last 6 months, accounts I didn't even know existed. Offshore wires. Transfers in my name that I never signed. And a series of payments labeled as asset protections. He's hiding money, she said calmly. And he thinks you won't find it because he assumes you're still grieving. I was. But grief wasn't blinding me anymore. It was fueling me. Elise laid out the next steps like a general planning a siege. Step 1, freeze all joint accounts immediately. Step 2, file an emergency motion to review the trust under grounds of unilateral manipulation. Step 3, subpoena every digital transaction related to Caleb's fund in the last year. Step 4, notify Mark's legal team after everything is in motion. This only works if he's caught off guard, she said. Don't let him sense movement. I nodded. What do you need from me? Strength. Silence. And signatures. I gave her all 3. That night, I went home and found the house exactly how I'd left it. Dishes still in the sink. Caleb's backpack still on the chair. His dragon stuffed animal on my pillow. I sat on the floor, opened my laptop, and wrote a letter to Caleb. Not to send. Just to say what I hadn't said. They tried to erase you, sweetheart. They tried to treat you like a line item. But I remember your voice. Your laugh. The way you made breakfast a performance. I promise, this isn't the end of your story. It's the start of mine. The next morning, Elise sent me a 1-line message. He doesn't know it yet, but you own everything. That same afternoon, the court approved the emergency freeze. Mark's lawyer called at 3:42 p.m., his voice low, suddenly polite. We were under the impression your client wouldn't contest. Elise cut him off. Your impression was wrong. I sat across the desk from her, watching her work, and felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Power. Not rage. Not revenge. Just a cold, sharp clarity. Mark had buried his own reputation when he walked away from Caleb's funeral. Now, I was going to bury his leverage. And the most beautiful part? I'd do it all without raising my voice.